Yeah. Did you learn any non-musical lessons that have served you well through your participation in this ensembles and bands? Any
Yeah.
takeaways that are not musical though?
Yeah, I mean, it's listen, playing in an ensemble is really about listening. It's not about playing. I mean, you got to play and you got to do your own thing, and that's great. But the purpose of playing in an ensemble is putting your business together with other people's business. And the only way you can actually do that, I mean, if you go in and you're like, man, I am going to just nail this thing, whatever this is, I'm going to nail it. And the rest of y'all, best of luck. And I'll see you at the end. And like, that's, and you may in fact nail the passage and congratulations, but that's not ultimately the point of this. Ultimately, the point is getting your passage together with everybody else's passage. And the only way you can do that is by actually listening. Actually listening. You got to be confident enough with your own business, whatever it is that you're doing, that you can like lay down your part, but you also have to keep both ears completely open to everything else going on around you in order for things to be able to communicate, in order for things to be able to fit. Um, and if you're not listening, you can't communicate. If you're not hearing, you can't communicate. And it's also true that if you go in there saying, I'm going to lay down this lick or whatever it is, laying down the lick is great. But what if somebody else next to you is trying to lay down the lick and they're playing it slightly differently or, slightly slower or slightly faster or whatever it is? If you're not listening, both of you actively to each other, then you're just going to be off from each other. There's a really great truism about orchestras. There's no such thing as an orchestra that plays more in tune than another orchestra. The orchestras that we think play more in tune are just the orchestras that adjust the fastest, that adjust the quickest, because it's not like you just come in and you're like, well, that's my A440 and I'm ready to go and I'm going to just blast through this damn thing. That's just it just doesn't work like that. You have to be actively listening to each other to make music. Now, you said, are there extra musical lessons? That is the greatest extra musical lesson for me, because the idea that you would only really be carefully listening while you're playing music, assuming you have learned that lesson, and then when you're having conversations, it's like, I'm actually over here, I'm doing another thing, I can't actually be bothered to listen to what the other person is saying. And that's not going to get you very far. So it's really the listening skills and the people skills, of understanding that you must listen to each other, and that listening really leads to, um, modification of behavior, I suppose, is a great way to put that. But if you're really truly listening, it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in, third period band or, in a corporate boardroom meeting. The people who are the most successful in both venues are the ones that listen the most carefully and the most critically. And so that's kind of ultimately what I took away non-musically, or not non-musically, extra musically, was this ability to really listen to people.
It's made teaching online band really hard when we rely on our ears and what we
Yeah.
hear from kids and being you know, flying blind is what it feels like right now. I don't get to hear their voices very often because we can't have everybody. I mean, I don't get to hear their instruments. I can't hear them express themselves. And that's
Yeah.
been my challenge is how do I hear their voices? How do I listen to what they need? And how do I adapt? So it's been really hard, but that's a beautiful life lesson. If nothing else, that excerpt, that clip of you just now, I think needs to be heard by everybody out there. That
Good.
was fantastic. And I hope my
Thank you.
students listening understand that what Brett's just been talking about also is out in the real world as we try to learn to get along with each other. We have to really listen to one another, especially those people we don't agree with, and try to understand why might they say this? What can I learn here? And how does this impact?
There's a wonderful quote from the composer Gustav Mahler who says, what does "I don't like this" mean other than "I don't understand this"? Right? So if you don't like this, or you don't like him or her or whatever it is, then perhaps it's about getting a greater understanding of that or him or her. And the only way to get that understanding is by diving deeper and listening.
Great advice.